Hey folks, welcome to Good Story Live. It is Thursday, September 22nd of 2022. A lot of twos in that.
I know.
A lot of twos there. Yeah, absolutely. We're glad to have you on board. I'm Jesse Mulbauer, joined by Ginger Crosby. Always great to have you on the show, Ginger.
Likewise. We have a special guest today that we're so excited about. Finally able to talk to him.
Finally able to talk to him. Dr. Justin Blaney joins us live from Seattle. Justin, how are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be on the show. Good to see you.
Justin's new book, Relationshift, just came out this week. We're very excited to talk to him about that, as well as a trip that he recently took that was, I'm sure, very interesting and unusual. So we're gonna delve into that as well. Justin, hang tight. We'll be back with you in a couple minutes. All right?
Sounds good.
All right, Ginger. What do you say? Should we get the show on the road?
Let's do it.
All right, folks. Let's do it. This is Good Story Live. Back, folks, and we're back. I love when the logo swooshes out toward the camera. Isn't that a cool part of it, Ginger? It just goes,
Yeah. I mean, we might be a little biased, but you know.
Absolutely. We see it every week, so.
This is true.
It is true. How are you, Ginger?
I'm great, thanks.
How are things down there in Atlanta?
Things are good. Well, actually, I'm a little tired today. I'm not gonna lie.
You?
Yeah, my daughter woke up at 3:30 this morning. And when my daughter wakes up in the middle of the night, it's not just like she is doing a little whimpering cry. She straight up hollers.
No.
Hollers. And I was like, oh gosh, okay. She's gonna wake up the whole house. So I just went and grabbed her. And brought her into the bed. But that meant that I got very little sleep from that point on.
Yes. Because as we've previously established on another episode, your daughter tends to sleep oblongly, askew, just however.
Oh yeah. Yep. She rolls. She fell asleep early last night, actually. She was so tired. She's been on a 3-day streak of no naps, not intentionally, but it's just the way that these 3 days happen to unfold. And so by end of day 2, day 3, she's a little delirious.
Yes.
And last night she fell asleep 45 minutes before her bedtime on the couch. And we're bringing her in the room and trying to change her. Not completely, but at least get her into a fresh diaper. And she immediately just rolls onto her stomach. She's like, nope, not happening. So that was fun, trying to figure out how to get a fresh diaper on her when she's straight up on her belly.
All the moms can relate who are listening right now, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So I'm a little tired from that, but I did. You guys must be so excited to hear about what goes on in the life of Ginger with kids. I mean, I feel like I talk about them a lot. On a much lighter note, I found a new hairdresser that I really liked.
Oh,
and I'm gonna see her again.
That's great. You got a second date?
I have a second date.
Good.
Are you very regimented with your hair?
Obviously.
Yeah, it's never out of place, right?
Well, so I have historically gone to salons and done okay there. However, during the pandemic, my wife Poe, at the time my girlfriend Poe, was kind enough to come over and cut my hair. And she had never cut hair before, but she gave it a go, and she did a very, very decent job. So decent, in fact, that when I went back to the stylist after a while, she was like, "Whoever's been doing your hair has done an okay job." I was like, "That's an accolade if I ever heard one for someone who's never cut hair before." So.
That's awesome. I also cut Kevin's hair during the height of lockdown. Yeah. Man, am I glad I'm not a hairdresser. I am so appreciative.
Your hair looks great, though. I thought of it as soon as I saw you, I was like, Ginger, you got her hair done.
He fibs. He fibs. I told him. I was like, by the
I
way,
knew it looked nice. I didn't
thank you.
know, you know.
Look, in fairness, it doesn't look different from any other day, aside from the fact that there might be a little bit more curl in it. But
Okay.
aside
And
from
you had
that,
it trimmed a bit, right? You had a
I
cut.
did get it trimmed a bit.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I was very happy because when I sat down in the chair, she was like, please don't tell me we're cutting all of this off. And I was like, no, we're not. Because the
Jesse's not
last
completely aloof, not completely
no,
aloof to these things.
no,
Yes.
no, no.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I almost fish hooked my nose ring. Whew.
Oh, that's right. Ginger's got to know. You can't tell, folks, sometimes. It's very faint. But there it is.
I almost fish hooked it. I've done that a handful of times. It's not very pleasant. I don't recommend it. Nose ring, sure, but don't catch it.
The story of that's very interesting. Ginger had not slept for nights because of her child, and then went out thinking she was going grocery shopping, and came back with a nose ring. It's a cautionary tale, is what that is.
You know how it actually? I told you the story of how I actually got the nose ring.
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Yes,
You did.
okay.
A girls' trip. The girls' weekend.
Girls' weekend trip.
All
And I
sorts
just
of
happened to
fun.
be like, does anybody want to get a piercing or a tattoo? We didn't get tattoos.
Okay.
But
well,
two of the
next
five.
Next time.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Speaking of nose piercings, that is not a good transition at all.
No, I was going to say, how is he going to make
we have to talk
work?
about this. Sorry, folks. I have no good segue. Ginger
None.
took us down the primrose path, and I have no way to get us back. So we're just going to make a hard pivot because we have to bring this up. It's relating to theater. It was announced this week that Phantom of the Opera, the famous Broadway play created by Andrew Lloyd Webber, it's been running for 35 years, is going to close. It's going to shut down in February after a 35-year run. Longest running Broadway show in history.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Have you seen it?
I did. I saw it on Broadway many years ago. It's my favorite play that I've ever seen. It was spectacular. And folks, if you live around New York, or you're going to be in New York before February,
go see it.
You go see it. It's worth it. And you will feel like you've partaken in a part of history before it closes. The music is amazing. The whole thing is a spectacle. It's really wonderful. And it will be missed, I'm sure, by many people who love it.
Oh yeah. So it is also one of my favorites. I've also seen it on Broadway, and I loved it. It was so good. And I remember, gosh, when the film came out, probably back in like between 2004 and 2006. I think more 2004-ish. And I don't remember. Now, here's what I don't remember is if I saw the film first or if I saw it on Broadway. But I know I saw it on Broadway. And gosh, I have one friend who has seen it, I can't tell you how many times, and she is devastated that it will no longer be there.
Yeah. The second closest in the running is Chicago.
Really?
Has been running, but I mean, it's like half the time. It's consistently, yeah,
I cannot imagine that it won't be back at some point. I just I have a hard time fathoming that it will not.
Yeah, if the rest continue, I mean, they'll all hit that record at some point. If the top one keeps falling off, Chicago's next. I think Wicked is up there. Book of Mormon's been running for over a decade. So yeah, but anyway, go see Phantom of the Opera. It is amazing. Have you seen any other major Broadway shows, Ginger?
I've seen The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast.
Oh yes,
both Disney. I would love to see Hamilton. I've not seen Hamilton. I have not watched it on I know it's available, or it was available on Disney Plus for a minute. I'm sure it's still there. I have not seen it there.
What was Beauty and the Beast or Lion King? What was Lion King like on Broadway?
Lion King was amazing. It was so good. I think, I mean, we all know here, if you've been around any of the Good Story Live episodes, that Beauty and the Beast is my favorite, be that the animated and the live action film. So it's natural that I also would love the Broadway show. But Lion King, I feel like, was the first one that we saw. We used to go up. My aunt lived in New Jersey for a period of time, and she would always take us to the city for a day and take us to a show.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
a lot of these shows are connected to family or friend events, or unless you live in that area, you're usually going to visit for a certain reason, and you catch a Broadway show while you're there. Or if it's off Broadway, you hope it gets to Chicago or San Francisco. Yeah.
Has Poe been to New York?
That is a good question. I don't believe she has. I don't believe she's been to New York City. No. I told her next time we go, we'll catch a Broadway play, which Into the Woods is running right now. And if we had time, we would go see Into the Woods, because that hasn't been on in a while. And actually, it's interesting because Into the Woods debuted right around the same time that Phantom of the Opera did. It was maybe like a year afterward. And that ran for quite a long time. That was Stephen Sondheim's production. And really, those were like the two major things you could go see on Broadway for quite a while. And people who were either tired of seeing Phantom or wanted kind of a different theatrical experience would go to see Into the Woods, which is a retelling of many of the childhood fairy tales in sort of a darker theme. Great play. Yes. The movie was excellent.
I was going to say, I enjoyed the movie. I've not seen the show, but I did see the movie and I did enjoy that.
Yeah.
Kevin has not been to New York City either. That's why I asked. And I know that that's one of the places that we want to make it to at some point.
Well, the four of us should go and go catch a show in New York sometime.
Yeah. I'm down. Okay. Who are we talking to today?
We haven't left. We'll have to ask our guest.
We already know who we're talking to. Why should I say that? We're talking to the person we were going to try and talk to last week, right? But
Dr. Justin Blaney is with us. We have him successfully on a good satellite connection from his home live in Seattle, Washington. We're going to chat with him in a little bit and ask him what his favorite Broadway show is as well. Get his reaction to the wrapping up of Phantom of the Opera. So. It's sad. But we're not going to end on a sad note, folks. Justin's book, Relationshift, comes out nationwide today. We're going to talk about it. And we're talking about all the other things that make him an interesting person, including a trip he recently took.
Yeah.
And what that was like for him. It was not just any trip. We'll cover that in a minute. We're going to go to a commercial break. We'll be back in just a minute or two. Stick with us. You're watching Good Story Live.
We built a portal connecting the Earth and the Moon.
This could end the space race before it's even begun. Your daughter is up on the Moon, and we can't get her down.
A stowaway? Alaire's a good kid. Why would she do something so reckless?
Maybe she's looking for something. Or someone.
Who? There's no one else up on the Moon.
What if there is?
We're back, folks, and we have an exciting guest, so let's let's just dive right in, shall we, Ginger? We got a lot to go over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Folks, let me read a bio here first. Dr. Justin Blaney is our guest. He's the best-selling author of 15 books and has amassed more than 1 million followers on social media. That's a lot of people.
I know. A lot of eyeballs.
It is, that's right. He publishes an app that features his writings on philosophy and aesthetics and is a professor at the University of Washington. His latest book, Relationshift, Unleashing the Surprising Power of Relationships to Change Yourself, Remake Your Life, and Achieve Any Business Goal, comes out nationwide today. And we're very excited to talk to him, Dr. Justin Blaney. Justin, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to be on the show with you.
It's great to talk to you again. Justin's live from Seattle, Washington, at his home there. It's a beautiful city. I've said it more than once. Everyone should go visit the Pacific Northwest. Big fan. Before we brought you on, I don't know if you heard this segment, Justin, but we were talking about how Phantom of the Opera is actually closing down after 35 years. It's my favorite Broadway show I've ever seen. We want to know, did you ever see that, or do you have a favorite Broadway show that comes to mind?
Yeah, actually, I have seen it a couple of times. Great show. Seen it in New York. I think I might have seen it here once in Seattle too. We have a theater that's a couple blocks from my house that I love to go to.
That's right.
Favorite, I mean, Hamilton is great. Man, I saw one recently that I've really, really loved. Hadestown.
Oh, haven't seen that one.
It's amazing. So if you haven't seen that yet, I would highly recommend checking it out. Awesome. And also got to see the touring version of it. But I think next time I'm in New York, I might try to catch it there if I can.
Cool. Awesome. Well, speaking of touring and going to visit places, before we get into your book and some of the other questions we have for you, you just returned from Burning Man. And if our audience doesn't know what that is, maybe you could explain what it is. And is this the first time you've ever gone?
Yes, it is the first time. I went with my partner, Anya. It was her 6th time, so thankfully I had a guide to keep me alive. Burning Man, interesting. It's an interesting event that takes place in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
When you're there, you often you're looking around and you're kind of wondering to yourself, is this really happening, and why would all these people come here for this? It's an annual event. It's been happening for decades, and it's grown to the point where I think over 70,000 people go.
Wow.
And it's difficult to get a ticket. You do have to get a ticket to get in, but when you're there, everybody who comes participates in it. So it's not like a normal festival where you go and you buy food and you pay for a ticket and you see concerts performed, but every single person who comes is actually a part of the festival, and everybody brings something to give to the community. So it's a very unique audience that it's a very unique group of people that comes together that would be interested in participating in this kind of do-it-yourself Alice in Wonderland story, where you get to be the hero of your own story, and you kind of, I don't know, it's one of these things that's there's not a lot else out there like it, so it's difficult to compare. Mm-hmm. But I would say to anybody who's interested, I mean, you can search, you can see photos online. It's beautiful. You end up staying till sunrise, many nights, and there's laser lights everywhere. There's fire going off. But to me, the thing that really makes it special is like all of the people who come are very open-hearted. Mm-hmm. They're all interested in adventure. They're interested in each other, and you really have to. I mean, even whether you want to or not, you're kind of pulled out of your normal world, and you're in this different kind of world for as long as you're there. No cell range. It's hard to find people. Everything is different, and so I think that that's really attractive. And then you come out of it, it's very strange coming back into the normal world, and everybody just seems a little different. And I think that the people who go are different, which is one of the reasons why people like it.
Mm-hmm. And it's a multi-day event, right? It's not just a one
days, I think, in total.
Yeah. That's awesome. I saw, I remember seeing last week some of your Instagram stories. You shared a picture of someone that had the same outfit that you were wearing.
Interesting things happen.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's so cool.
My partner and I were at some event and we're just here, enjoying dancing to a DJ set, having a great time. And then this person turns around and looks at us and goes, "Justin?" And it was a woman who I had seen in years, who I knew years ago. Anya, my partner, had met. And it's like one of these random things that, like, just, strange stuff like that happens all the time. Or, yeah, this one girl comes running up to me and we had the same outfits on and she wanted to take a picture. And then normally, like, you never hear from that person again, right?
Yeah.
But 10 days later, I get a message from someone. She said, "Hey, by the way, here's these photos of us," and it's just really fun and special. A lot of people have different perceptions about it, and I would say that you don't really know what it's like until you go see it, and it's probably going to be different than you expect.
So it's not just a bunch of people doing peyote in the desert. It's
it can be whatever you want it to be.
Okay, got it. Good to know. Well, let's pivot a little bit and talk about your new book, because there's many other things we want to address here as well. But congratulations on this success. I'm sure it's going to be very, very successful because it's addressing something
Got a copy
that I
of
think
it.
a lot of people are.
It came in the mail today because it got released today.
It's amazing. It's hardcover glory right there.
Yeah, it's really
beautiful
exciting.
cover, by the way. Did you do the
Thank you.
artwork, or did?
I did. We had another designer at the publisher that made it look pretty and perfect, but I had the general idea, and then the publisher helped make sure that it looked tight and nice.
Well, your book, and I've read it, I read an advanced copy, is all about relationships and how they interface with your personal life, your business life, all those different arenas, but more specifically, how they help shape your destiny, if you will.
Yep.
How did you learn this? How did you learn that relationships have all these tethers, like spokes on a wheel, and are play such a vital role?
Yeah, it's interesting. I grew up, I grew up down in Southern California, and I didn't really realize it, but I had a difficult time understanding how people relate with each other. Like, it didn't come as naturally to me as maybe other people. Now looking back, like, over the years, people joke, like, am I on the spectrum for autism? Or, and sometimes people were poking fun at me. Sometimes people were curious. I never officially was diagnosed, but in retrospect, what I realized was that I had to learn a lot of behaviors, like how do you interact with people in a normal way. Like, one example I give in the book is, like, I didn't realize that, that how I came across in conversations was that I appeared to be bored or disinterested or aloof because my resting face was giving a different impression than what was going on inside me.
Okay.
And so I had to learn and observe how people interact in conversations, and like something simple like smiling a little bit when the other person is talking to show them that you're interested and engaged. This is something like a lot of people do normally without thinking about it, but I had to kind of learn that behavior. And so the reason why I wrote this book was because I realized that I had learned a lot of different behaviors over the course of my life that made me into the person I am today. And what I realized was that this is actually happening to all of us all the time. It's just that most of us aren't aware of it and how the people in our life are shaping us into the person that we are. And so I realized that we could actually take that and learn to shape ourselves into something that we want to become, so we can take control of that process rather than just allowing it to happen to us. And one of the quickest ways and easiest ways to do that is kind of my example of, like, you notice that somebody's really engaging in a conversation, or maybe there's somebody that has a trait that you like. They can give really eloquent toasts at dinner, or they have this amazing confidence, and they come into a situation and you can tell that their confidence is really magnetic, and a lot of people are attracted to that.
Yeah.
You can see those things in people and you can say, hey, I'd like to have a little bit more of that in my life. I'd like to be a little more confident, or I'd like to be able to give better toasts, or I'd like to be more engaging in a conversation, one-on-one with someone. And so you can learn to emulate those traits. And I kind of think of it as like channeling that person. You think of someone who embodies that trait, and then you try to just do your version of it. And over the course of time, it can become more natural, and you can start to make those traits your own. That's just one, like, really quick, simple, easy way to apply it in everyday life. But of course, into the book, I get into much more detail. I mean, there's dozens of different ideas and concepts and strategies that we can use to make use of these principles in our everyday life.
I liked how anecdotal the book was, and I like how it seems to apply not just to business people, although business people and entrepreneurs would definitely learn a lot from it. But like on Good Story Live, we feature primarily artists and writers and painters and people in the aesthetic realm, the creative types. How would Relationshift benefit someone who is a creative?
Yeah, I mean, the cool thing about the concept, I think, of Relationshift is that it applies to any goal, any kind of outcome. I actually have a chapter that is specifically on different kinds of life paths. So let's say you want to get into better shape, physical shape, or in your question, how do I be an artist? How can I become a successful artist? Well, I talk about a specific path and I talk about specific strategies that you can use. So one of those things would be finding other artists and hanging around with them. Not just any artists, though, but artists who are not just ambitious, but that are actually making their dream a reality. So you could hang around with different kinds of artists, some artists that just like to smoke pot and talk about their dreams. And then you have other artists who are every single day, they're grinding to try to make that dream come true. Between those two categories, what the principle of Relationship would say is hang out with more of the kind of people that are actually doing the work to make their dreams come true. And then you will start to see how that has a positive impact on you towards that same goal.
Yeah. I love this topic because I do agree, like relationships and the people that you interact with, right, on a daily basis, or the people that you surround yourself with, even from the standpoint of the books that you read, can have a tremendous impact on the trajectory of your life. But I'm interested. I feel like it also requires a sense of awareness of that it's even, something that exists. Again, so it's
a peer pressure that exists, and absolutely by being aware of it, we can take control of it. But one of the concepts that I really started to get excited about after I finished the book was more about how I'm impacting the people in my life. So how am I relationshifting the people around me? And is there a way that I can make a better, more positive impact on the people in my life? And so that's something also like peer pressure. There's positive peer pressure, there's negative peer pressure. So this is about leaning into positive peer pressure, both in how we're impacting others and how they're impacting us, and being more consciously aware of that.
I think we've had a lot of guests who would confirm that they've, that positive peer pressure to get started, to try something new, to have the courage to make executive decisions in your own life about your writing or your art or your music. I mean, it can be helpful. Not everyone has access to that, but if you do, or as Justin's saying, maybe you proactively go out and find it, can make all the difference.
You mentioned books, and books are valid, or thought leaders. I talk about a concept called unidirectional versus bidirectional relationships. Bidirectional is the typical kind that we have where we both invest the same amount of energy in it. We have trust and we share information. But unidirectional relationships are like books where they're sharing information. We're actually giving them trust back if we value the information, but they're impacting us. And that is a kind of relationship too. There's pluses and minuses. On the plus side, books are kind of like somebody took a lot of time to put their best ideas into 200 pages and organize it, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, they can't hold you accountable to results. They may not be able to help you apply. How did those lessons translate into your specific situation? Sometimes we can read a book and we can think, I'm going to go do this, but we don't realize that person did it in a different context, maybe with different skill sets, different connections, born into a different situation, born a different time. And they have a lot of other information that maybe they can't share in that 200-page limit that is essential for applying it. So there's pluses and minuses to unidirectional relationships, but they absolutely affect us very similarly to normal relationships.
Absolutely. And gosh, again, thinking about the give and take when you're actually working with someone, you mentioned accountability, and gosh, and then also the ability to being the authority in a subject area, being able to discern when is a good time to divulge what information, not from a gatekeeping standpoint, but from a I don't want to overwhelm an individual standpoint.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
abs-
Being a good teacher, being a good mentor, and that's something that I've been, thinking about more. So, like as a business leader, how do I help my team members excel in their careers? Well, it requires me waking up in the morning thinking about how am I how am I relationshiping my team members? How am I helping them learn and grow in their roles? So that's another area. You mentioned artists, so trying to use more examples related to that. One thing that a lot of artists have difficulty with is getting started or finishing something.
Yeah.
So having someone in your life that gets stuff done and finishes things is going to be a really helpful person to have around. And maybe you just call them up every once in a while and you say, you know what, I can't get started today. They may not even be in a creative field. Maybe they're in a different field. Maybe they're an accountant, but they're really good at getting stuff done and prioritizing. And you just call them up and you say, chat about it, get some input.
Absolutely.
So it's about curating the direction in life and then finding people who can help you. And one thing I want to say is it's not transactional. A lot of people will hear kind of these concepts, and they're afraid that they don't want to have transactional relationships where it's like, I'm getting something from you and that's why I'm hanging out with you. That's the exact opposite of what I would recommend and what I even think would be effective, because nobody wants to have a transactional relationship. So that other person's not going to want to engage with you anyways in that way. And if they do, they probably aren't the best person for you to be engaging with, because that just doesn't lead to the best outcomes in life, in my experience and from what I've seen. So it's really about forging real bonds, real relationships where you have a healthy reciprocity that's happening without keeping track of things. But you know that both of you are benefiting from the relationship, and it's not just quid pro quo.
Yeah, very much so. In relating to how you promote your work, a lot of creatives struggle with that. Maybe they have no problem getting started. Maybe they have no problem following through, but promoting it, marketing it at the back end is where many fail, unfortunately. And you at the University of Washington, you're an adjunct professor. You taught, and correct me if I'm wrong, one of the first collegiate level courses on how to be an influencer. Is that right?
Yeah, actually, we invented the course for the University of Washington. And at the time, for several years, it was the only course available on influencer marketing that we knew of at the collegiate level.
Wow, that's amazing. Can you tell us through the filter of Relationshift, how something like that on the back end of helping, how do I take what I've created here and start building relationships to get it out there so people know it exists? How do you take that to the next level?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've coached a lot of people on, creative pursuits, writing being one of them, but I've worked with a lot of musicians in other fields, acting, movie making, but specifically like with writing. And a lot of people talk about how difficult it is to write the book. It's difficult to write a song. It's difficult to make a movie, right? And whatever these pursuits are. But the real difficulty is actually after you've completed the creative work. And if you want that to be successful, in my experience, it requires a lot of energy on promotion and marketing, which is something that a lot of creative people hate to do. They want to just create. And I can say if I could, I would just create and I would send stuff out into the world and, it would just catch fire all on its own. But in reality, there's, thousands and thousands and thousands of creative works created every week, every month, every year. And many of them are really good. Like if you go to Nashville and you go to any bar in Nashville, you can hear a world-class band playing cover songs. And they're as good as anybody in the world in terms of talent. But most of those people aren't going to make it because there's just not enough slots available at the top of these creative pursuits. So not only do you have to be talented, but you also have to find a way in. Most often, I think that happens through relationships. If you're talking about being an influencer marketing, we're still talking about relationships. It's about
Mhm.
building connections to other influencers and having cross promotions, and where you're sharing each other's audiences. Or if you're doing
Yeah.
influencer marketing, it's about reaching out to someone and and forging a real connection where you're talking about, hey, will you promote my product or service, and I'll pay you, to do that. But it's still based on some form of human connection. And the
For sure.
stronger you stick with that, the human connectivity part of it versus the transactional part, the more effective it is. So absolutely, if you're in a creative pursuit, you know, Relationshift can help you get it done, but you also can use it to promote and market and build your audience once you have those creative works that you're ready to release.
Sure. Like, and as you said, like, there is a tremendous amount of everybody could create something, but then there's also a strategy piece that goes into the getting it out there. And my background has been in content marketing and social media strategy for the last 3 or 4 years. So it's definitely something that I come across in the people that I meet that I end up helping in that arena. And gosh, what are some of the most common issues that you think people have when it comes to getting their passion projects off of the ground? You know, like you said, everybody has the ability to create something, but getting it going from that standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people, me included, we have desires, things that we want to do, goals. We want to write a book, let's say. And the fact is that these things are difficult and they take a lot of focus and hard work. And I think that is, we talk about inertia, we talk about resistance sometimes when we're discussing these things. There's a resistance to getting started or getting done. There's a lot of things at play there. The fear of failure.
Definitely.
And it's difficult for me. Like the books from my past, I'm kind of embarrassed by. Like, as a creative person, I think a lot of people would understand this. You release something and you think, man, you must be so proud of it. But oftentimes you look at it and you say, man, I wrote that 5 years ago, and I kind of want to hide it from people. Now, other people might read it and say, no, it's good, we loved it. But as a creative person, it's very vulnerable and difficult to have your stuff out there. Like this book, I put personal stories in it, and you risk someone reading that and making fun of you or laughing at you or not caring, being apathetic,
Right.
And so I personally have been on a journey of learning to not care about that and learning to do it. You have to have some other reason, I think, to get over that hurdle. For me, it became, this was something, one, I enjoyed the process of creating it, which to me is number one most important thing, that you need to find the motivation of just actually enjoying creating it, because that will help you overcome all different kinds of resistance. The resistance of worrying about what people think about it, or can I get it finished? If you're just enjoying the process, then that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But then there's other hurdles that you're going to need to overcome in order to launch that and get it out there, like the hurdle of perfectionism. And I was, when I was doing the audiobook, it was very interesting. I got to read the audiobook for Relationshift, and I kept stopping and wishing so badly that I could change the book as I was reading.
Oh, yes.
Like, I'm reading, I'm in the studio and I'm reading this paragraph out loud, and in my head, I'm trying to read it and make it sound interesting. In my head, I'm thinking, why did I put this paragraph in? How did this stay in the book to the point where I am now reading, like, this is boring, or this is in the wrong place, or, and so
I have nothing to add to that, Ginger, because my book came out perfect the first try.
I am dying right now, Justin, because and I love Jesse and I have often talked about, if he had the ability, would he narrate his own audiobook, the audiobook version of his book? So it's interesting that you did, and this was your experience, because I feel like Jesse would have a very similar experience.
That's why I hired someone else to do it. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, with a novel, I would hire someone else too, just because I think it requires a certain amount of acting. I don't want to put myself. I was pretty nervous to narrate this, but yeah, it's true, and I think you have to be okay with that. Like as an artist, you have to be okay with the fact that at a certain point, I'm calling this thing done and I'm moving on. And then people are going to judge it based on that. And one thing I've kind of learned, I think, through the process is like to be a lot less judgmental of other creative works, because it's so difficult to get it done.
Right.
And it's not going to be perfect. And there's things I read in my book, and I think somebody's going to read that and think I believe that, but there's all sorts of nuance. Like
Correct.
if I was talking to the person, I could say, well, but there's 16 other ways to look at that. But in a book, you only get to say one, the sentence. You have to say the
sentence.
And
a pull quote itself is dangerous because there's no contextual assistance and guide. Right.
So there's just a lot of vulnerability. I guess I would sum it up in saying you have to find your path to getting over that. And I think one way is like, one, enjoying the process. Two, adopting a point of view that says, you know what, if this helps some people, that's great. And all of the people that hate it, if there's if there's a list a mile long of people that hate it and there's 10 people that got something out of it, I'm okay with that. You kind of have to be okay with that. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to be negative or self-effacing. I'm just saying you kind of have to let it go.
Yeah.
Because if you don't let it go, it's going to eat you up. And there's not, at the end of the day, all you can do is the best you can do. Put it out there and move on.
I have always written for myself primarily. And then I think about, how other people are going to enjoy it, and that's fine. And you get a lot of feedback, but primarily I enjoy the process. I write what I like to read. And the idea is that other people will be helped and enjoy that as well. So you and I have worked in the past together. We've worked on projects together.
Yep.
I wanted to publicly accolade you for one thing in particular. Something you taught me many years ago is that it's about delegation. You taught me one of the biggest lessons was to delegate as much as you possibly can, to leave for yourself only the things that only you can do. And that gives you the creative freedom to be even more productive and to help grow and expand the business or the creative project or whatever it is that you're working on. You're a serial entrepreneur. You've started many companies. How does Relationshift interface with delegation?
Yeah, that's a cool question. Thank you. And thank you for saying that. I mean, just to reiterate what you're saying, I believe in delegation and automation, or delegation or automation. So you can automate things and you can delegate them. And you're right. You should try to break it down to what is the most important thing. What can I just make the decisions on this, or can I give the direction and then let somebody else take it and run with it? That can help you. I mean, this goes back into how does an artist market and promote their work? Well, one way to do that is to have a good job where you can earn a good living, and then you can invest in your art and you can pay assistants to help do tasks to help market it and reaching out to podcasters, or it doesn't have to be impersonal. And I'm not talking about spamming, but what I'm saying is that delegating that task enables you to get more done. Now, at a certain level, there's actually nothing that you can't delegate or automate. Because if you look at a large business like, let's say Apple, well, Steve Jobs started Apple, but he's passed away now. So he is no longer in charge of any tasks at Apple. So if somebody says, man, there's nobody that could make this decision except Steve Jobs, well, then Apple wouldn't exist anymore. But a company is all about creating a vision for something and delegating it, and then training those people to do the same. And then the more you do that, the bigger you get. So I think that this is a lesson that applies in promoting your art. It's a lesson that applies in building a business. And the way that it interrelates with Relationshift is it's about mentoring. So it's like I said earlier, waking up in the morning, thinking about your team, or thinking about how can I help whoever I'm delegating this to succeed in that role. And that requires mentoring. And then that person, I mean, Jesse, you mentioned generously that I taught this to you. That was Relationshift. So I had learned something. I had taught it to you. Now you know it. Now you're teaching it to other people, I'm sure, because you're working with people and so one of the things I talk about in the book is like ideas are like viruses. Viruses can be good or bad, but you have to catch it from someone. Once you catch it, it's in you. And now all of a sudden you're like, what can I delegate? And I love that about delegation and automation, because once people catch it, at first they're like, this is too hard. Delegating it takes more time than doing it myself. You're right, it does. It requires an investment. It's like the difference between digging a hole with a shovel versus a steam shovel or a diesel shovel. It's more work to build a diesel steam shovel or whatever. I don't know why I'm calling it a steam shovel. I think I'm going
or to rent it. You got to at least drive to the store and rent it. The earth moving equipment.
And there was a book about a steam shovel or something that I think I remember. But it requires a lot of money to build the machine. It requires a lot of expertise. But once you've built it, you can dig holes 1,000 times faster. And that's the same thing with delegation. So you invest up front to create a machine that now you just turn it on. Oh, I feel like taking a nap. I feel like taking a vacation. No problem. The machine's still running. So it frees you up. I want to go write a screenplay. I want to go do something creative. Well, that machine that you created is still running, so you can go do something else. You can build another machine that runs on your behalf, and you can keep doing that until you have Amazon.com until you've built Amazon. Or you could free up time to spend with your kids, or you can free up time to spend in creative pursuits.
You're speaking my language. Automation and delegation are the two things that I talk about most, even from the standpoint of motherhood and being a parent. You don't think about, right, moms and people in general, right, are overloaded. And the way that you eliminate that overwhelm is you delegate. And to your point, delegation, though, can be painful from the standpoint of it requires a lot of effort up front. And 100%, this is where that mentorship and coaching comes in. And it's like, so powerful.
If you're delegate, so an example would be like, if you delegate something to someone and they fail at it, I don't think it's that person's job. I think it's your job to fix that or find someone else, like in some cases. But in most cases, it just means that you need to go and be more detailed about the instructions, or work with them. Here, let me help you. We're going to do it together for a while. Come back to me and get them going to the point where they're going on their own. And then they need less and less check-in over time.
Yeah. As the person delegating, it's not the person who you delegated to. It's not their responsibility because you're imparting information. It was your gap that you missed when you assessed where they were to begin with.
Yep, exactly.
Which is, I love it. Like I said, you're speaking my language. Now, you and Jesse, like we mentioned, have known each other. And we actually had another guest on the show who was a part of something that I believe you inspired and put together, which was Art on the Rooftop. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we had Spence Hood. He was our first guest. So what inspired you to build the network of creatives in Seattle and start Art on the Rooftop?
Yeah, that's a fun story. So I moved to Seattle about 7-8 years ago, and I had just gone through a divorce. And so I moved here. I was single, and I didn't know anybody in town. Literally didn't know a soul. And I moved into this apartment downtown, and it has this beautiful view. I'm sitting in it right now. And I thought, I don't know anybody in Seattle. I've got this cool apartment. What if I invited some people over and we could have like a little concert? And so I got on Instagram and I searched for hashtags, Seattle musician, Seattle artist. And I thought we could have some, people play guitar, sing. Maybe we could have some poets, do some poetry reading. The artwork behind me, we actually had somebody come to one of our parties and do live painting. And this was created at one of these parties. So my very first one, though, Spence was one of the people I reached out to. And he just had used Seattle musician hashtag. And I reached out and said, hey, if you come and play, we'll take donations and split the money up among the artists. And he said, yes. And so
it was fun. I was there. I can say I was there. It was tremendous fun.
So but the first one, I ended up having like 40 people come to, and I didn't know any of them. And they were all, the only reason I knew any of them was some of them had used, artist hashtags on Instagram, and then some of them invited other people. But one of the things that tied them all together was kind of like we started talking about Burning Man, the kind of person that's willing to do something interesting and new and unique and meet, go to somebody's apartment that you've never met because a friend of a friend of a friend got an invite on Instagram. It was a very cool, very interesting group of people. And I'm friends with many of them to this day. Spence and I are good friends. In fact, he was on your show because he responded to that Instagram message that I sent, a certain number of years ago. We met, became friends. I introduced him to you. That's Relationshift. So, yeah. And since then, I've
right
done
there, Ginger.
What a
Relationship on Good
beautiful
Story
wrap
Live.
in a bow.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so we've had 10 of those parties since then, and Jesse, you've been to a few, and always a good time. They've grown a little more complicated since then. Had to move it to the rooftop. They got way too big for the apartment.
Ginger, next time you're in Seattle, you got to attend Art on the Rooftop. It's great fun.
Oh yeah, I would host something like that. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm all about it.
Art on the Rooftop, Atlanta. Justin might sue you for the rights. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll do a franchise.
Sounds good. I love it. Oh, I love that though. And like, again, what a creative way. And to your point, you have to have the creatives, that those people that just kind of want to be out there. That's one of the beautiful things about being a creative, having this show, meeting all of these people. Like, it's people that already want to say yes. And then when you get a group of people like that together, it's just creates such a fun environment. I'm here for it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Justin, we're running a little short on time, so I want to make sure we get this question in right at the end. You are a virtuoso. You're a man of many talents, a man of many interests. You balance education with business, with art. What would you say to someone who wants to learn how to do that themselves? Maybe they're starting with nothing. Maybe they barely have an Instagram. They have not invested in their relationships, but they want to start doing it now. Start them on the right track.
And to clarify, so the question is, somebody is starting out, and how would they do that using the concepts of Relationshift? Correct.
Whether they want to enhance business or their art, or maybe all of the above, but maybe they haven't invested in that in the past. How are they going to get off on the right foot?
It's never too late to start. I don't know, how old you are, who might be listening to this. You can be young, you can be old. I didn't even know what networking was until I was in my 30s. So, wow. And before that, I was doing everything on my own. And I got to say, that's the hard way to go. Trying to do it on your own is the difficult path. Going to networking events or trying to invest in relationships is not easy. It takes a lot of work. You might end up feeling like you're wasting a lot of time. You're connecting with people. It doesn't go anywhere. But the fact is that it's actually the easy path. It's much, much easier than trying to do it on your own, because doing it on your own is basically impossible. So what I would do is reframe your thinking around relationships. Investing in relationships is the fastest, easiest way for you to achieve any goal, no matter where you're at in your life, no matter how messy it is, no matter how much you might feel like you're wasting time or not making progress with those relationships that you're investing in. It's much, much easier. So reframing your mindset. And then I think just basically getting started, like just do something. Pick up the phone, call someone, ask people out for coffee. There's not a right or wrong way to do it, except either not doing it or doing it. So investing in it and trying is the way that you get started, and the way that you learn and grow. It's an oft used expression, but you can't steer a ship that's not moving. And so once you get moving in a direction, then you're going to be able to adjust that as you go, and you're going to pick up lessons and learn the things that you need to learn as you move forward. So that's all I would say is, like, reframe your mindset and then just get started. Just ask people out for drinks, ask people out for coffee. Don't worry about getting it perfect. Just start doing something. Yeah. And then as you move forward, you're going to figure out more tweaks, lessons. How do you do it better? And you're going to kind of figure that out as you go. But there's a billion different paths, and each person's path is unique. So you have to figure that out on your own, I think.
Absolutely. And I think for the person that's just starting out, figuring out how, like, for me, a big thing is, how do I want people to feel from leaving an interaction with me? And I think starting there is also a great spot when you're figuring out how to start cultivating relationships, or where do you even start? Well, okay, how do I want people to feel? So that way I can know how I lead my interactions as I'm trying to cultivate this, for sure.
Yeah. Wisdom from the Reverend Dr. Justin Blaney.
I know. Thank you so much, Justin. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure myself.
Yeah.
This is great. And Justin's new book, Relationshift, is available worldwide today. And go pick yourself up a copy. Justin, how do people get in contact with you?
All of my links, I've made a little landing page. It's really simple. It's just blaney.app, BLANEY.app. And I always keep that updated with whatever links that I have going on. There's not that many Justin Blaneys out there, so you can always just Google Justin Blaney. And then Relationshift, I have for that at relationshift.guide if you want to check that out.
Okay. And I will have all of that information. Yeah.
I'll have all of it linked. I've learned this from Ginger. We have all the links below in the video and on goodstorylive.com.
Right down there.
I wouldn't have known that if it weren't for Ginger, though. So I've learned from you so much.
I'm glad I could impart some wisdom there.
That was a relationship right there.
Justin, relationship so happening before our eyes. It's
right there. Instant success.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have you on again soon, Justin. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks for having me on. This is a great show. I love what you guys are doing here. And look forward to talking to you again soon.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Bye. There you go. Justin Blaney, Relationshift. Go pick yourself up a copy. It's a great book. And
I can't wait to read it.
Yeah, and keep in touch with the other interesting things that he has going on. Art on the Rooftop, the business ventures that he has, and he has some very helpful videos on YouTube about marketing and promoting yourself and influencing from a very kind of objective, intelligent standpoint. So go check that out. JustinBlaney.com, Blaney.app, all of that.
Absolutely. Who are we talking to next week? Jesse, do you know?
This is great. I'm very excited. My wife, Poe, found her on Instagram. Her name's Nicolette Martin. She is a live event artist. So basically, she goes to weddings or sporting events, and Bob Ross style will paint a portrait in, I don't know, a shorter span of time than the actual event itself. And her work is phenomenal. It's beautiful. It's fascinating. And we're going to talk to her next week, Nicolette Martin. So
awesome.
Yeah, that'll be great. Great fun.
Yeah. Makes me think of Justin's parties at his home where he has,
If she was in Seattle, she'd go visit Justin, go up to the rooftop at Art on the
Absolutely.
Rooftop. Well, you ready to Relationshift this week, Ginger?
Yeah. Yes.
Continue to?
Yes.
I am too. I already have and will continue to do so. So
wonderful.
Thanks for joining us on Good Story Live. We'll be back again next Thursday. Feel free to visit our website, goodstorylive.com, and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Turn on those notifications because that way you'll know when we go live.
There you go. We got to go. It's been fun. We'll see you next week, Ginger.
Bye.